Thanks everybody for tuning in for this Sunday's Simplytest Me beta bug smash. Over the past few weeks, I've been going through and getting the new version of Simplytest ready for the new beta version. Currently, this is the existing site, which has been around for a long time, quite a few years, and it's a Drupal 7 site that lets you launch Drupal test environments. And we're working on the new version, which is going to take a minute to wake up as it's still pointed to a development version of Simplytest Me that's on Drupal 9, which if I want to work locally, I need to get Docker open. So we're going to begin working on this. And the topic for today is going to be getting Drupal core logic working. And all of the work that I did, I accidentally broke being able to test Drupal core, which is a big use case that a lot of people use for this, is setting up Drupal core with different patches and being able to test it without setting it up locally. So we'll be fixing that today. Before I begin, I do want to talk to all of you about our sponsors real quick that help make the Simplytest Me project possible. First, to our service providers, Tugboat. All of the sandbox environments that you launch are preview environments created by Tugboat QA, which is the fastest platform to automate the creation of preview and test environments. The new hosting is provided by Amazy.io on their Lagoon cloud hosting platform, which also gives us on-demand environments. So whenever we get a pull request for the website, we actually get a test environment as well. And then to our development partners, these are folks who have contributed their employee time or their own time to help build this project out, such as QED42, who has been providing a lot of the front-end theming for the new project. So now that this is alive, or woken up rather, they have been working on getting all of this themed and usable. And then my own company, Bluehorn Digital. I've been doing the backend development for the new site and using my company's time to help contribute to these live streams, or rather using my time as my company for these live streams to help get this going on. If you do want to learn more about it, Adam wrote a little blog post that I'll put in the chat about how you can become part of this partner program and what it all really, development partner program and what it all really means. I also want to say, it's always low for just you. So I don't know. I don't know. So thanks to our sponsors, Centauro on Open Collective is a monthly organizational sponsor. And then also to give recognition to Maloon and Druid for their long support as infrastructure providers of Simplytest. If you'd like, you can go to Open Collective and become a sponsor as well. And a shout out to everybody who has sponsored in the past. All right, so let's get kicked. Now that housekeeping is all set, why don't we go on to fixing this right here for separating Drupal core logic and project logic. So Adam went through and tried to test with Drupal core, and it actually tried to do a require of Drupal/Drupal because it cannot require itself in composer.json. So we'll quick explain what that means. So inside of the composer template for all Drupal projects, it actually has this conflict where it says that the recommended project conflicts with Drupal/Drupal. And when we build our Drupal 8 and Drupal 9 projects, I'll show you that code. It's in Tugboat and Preview Config Generator. We take the setup commands, and in here, that's when we set up that, download commands. So you can see here we do composer required Drupal/ project name and parameters. So here's one bug is when we get Drupal, when we test with Drupal, we need it to actually translate to /core, because when working with composer, if we go to packages, it might be best to explain it here. So if we look at Drupal/Drupal on packages, This is like the full development trunk. This is like the full build, and that's why it conflicts. So it's like fetching the Drupal development repository. Oh, sweet. It actually shows that this is a mirror now. I think that's new in GitHub. So that's awesome that it says that without us having to do a lot of work. But if we go to /core, not core dev, that's an autocomplete. So on /core dev, or on Drupal /core, this is actually a subtree split of the core directory, which is the main parts of Drupal. So when somebody tests Drupal core, they actually want to be getting this. Oh, hey, I was on a commit. So we want to add some kind of mapping that says if they're testing Drupal itself, make sure that we're requiring the Drupal core. So we're going to make a note here. So we're going to do if Drupal /Drupal change to Drupal core. And one thing else we'll need to make sure we do is the project version. If we go back to the beta site, and if we type in just Drupal core, these kind of conflict. So we need to hide this selector when it's just Drupal core. So we can do that in the front end, but we also, I think, need to just back end fixes it for them to any conflicts. And we do that in this controller in Simplytest projects. Scroll down, core version. Nope, sorry, that's the launch module. Things are kind of split in various areas. I like to see combined. Like that route is, no, that route's not dead. That is launch project. So here it takes the request and launch manager from the submission. So what we need to do now is Drupal core version. Sorry. So one thing we can do is, to do if testing Drupal core, make sure this matches the project version. All right, so that's the first step that we can do in the back end. The front end we can figure out, because there's two problems. There's one, there's the user interface, example that's happening, and then there's also just in the back end making sure we do a proper build. Luckily, we have some tests. The tests. So we have the launch definition. This is where the original Drupal 9 code had things split out into a bunch of different modules, but they're extremely coupled. So we need to decide where we want to do this, because we know we have two changes. One change is in the preview config generator in Tugboat, and then inside of the instance manager. Oh wait, are these both in Tugboat? Oh, they are. Amazing. I got confused. So the launch module has the launch service provider, which calls, which calls the instance manager inside of Tugboat. Okay, amazing. Everything can just be inside of the Tugboat module. So let's go collapse some of these, and let's run the tests. We have unit tests. So the unit tests take mock instance data and assume what the build would be that's sent to Tugboat. So what we actually need to do is for Drupal 8, how does Drupal 8 work again? Do we composer install? Okay, for Drupal 8, we do git clone of the full Drupal development environment. So for Drupal 8, let's see, I need to go, so change the Drupal core for here. And in setup, or actually what we need to do, so like if project is distro, we need to say to do check if Drupal core because if it's in Drupal core, we actually don't want to run any fetching of it. So we know our two places to go are in here. That's one reason I put to do notes as well when I'm working, because when I open my VS tab, like for any git changes, I see that I modified these two files. So these are the files that need to be fixed. So let's go to, we'll write a test for Drupal 7, 8, and 9. Let's start with 9 first. So in here, all the config data that goes to this tugboat config test base. And copy one of these. So test specifying the install profile editor. All right, we'll just copy. We'll copy this giant blob of text. We're going to say testing Drupal core. So install profile, we'll still say it's the Umami demo. We'll say the project type is, I don't know how it stores Drupal core in there. So let's see. Maybe I can quick find where that code is. Drupal core is handed as like a one-off import. Somewhere in this code. Import. Oh, here we go. Search for project Drupal, get core data, type core. Okay. Well, there's these instances, so I guess we should just reuse that. So project version, we'll do 9.1.2, and I'm going to make another to do check, keep this empty. So one thing that we could do is either allow passing an empty Drupal core version, or we send a different one and we verify that it gets mapped. I guess either way it makes sense. So we're going to pass this, and in the output we'll make sure that it actually was a require for the 9.1.2 project template. So project gets imported as Drupal instance ID hash. What was all this for? Oh, okay, that's just some random stuff that's needed. All right, so let's just run this. So we should see composer create 9.1.2, require core dev, require the prophecy PHP unit requirement, add drush, link it. Then in download, we'll get the patches CLI, patches. And in here, we want to see Drupal core 9.1.2. That's the change we want to see. 9.1.2. And then the rest should be fine. Oh, here's one. Can't install Drupal core, so we need to make sure we remove that line there. So one is, if you're not familiar with it, test-driven development. I haven't written any code to fix the problem yet. I'm just making sure to create the code or create the test for it. 1 second. All right, so let's run this test, and we'll kind of do it by one. So I have PHP Storm configured to run PHP unit, and it's starting up the tests, and everything failed. Let's see why, because we have another bug. Required. Oh yeah, this, I had a typo in here from a while ago. So let's do there. Now let's rerun the tests. So since we're just testing the transformation of data, we were able to run a unit test instead of a kernel test because we don't need Drupal's database going. Inside of our test here, we create the preview configurator. And then when we test the data, we just pass it to here. Inside of the generate, it's just reading an array and returning a bigger array. So it doesn't actually touch Drupal's database. So we're able to test it as a unit test, which, as you see, is extremely fast. A lot of us in Drupal land are used to having very slow tests because we interact with the database all the time. And Drupal is a bear to install before every test. All right. So our test failed, and let's see where the differences are. Let's see. Can we do, let's do unified. So right here, we know we have to fix that, and we know we have to fix that. Looks like it didn't complain about trying to install, so that's great. So let's start with fixing this here. So let's go to the preview configurator and our to-dos. So parameters project. So git download commands. So what we could do, I think maybe in here is a pre-process ahead of time. So maybe we should just do that. So if project name, I think that's it. Nope, it's just parameters project. Oh, yeah, just parameters project. So if parameters project is equal to Drupal, we'll change parameters project equals core. But one thing I think maybe would be best is these are all the build commands. Maybe not this far up. It should be inside of, let's see, the setup commands won't move here because the setup is all the same. Let's look at the download commands. Oh, nope, that's for the one-click demos. Sorry, this whole entire thing needs to get refactored. It was done earlier on because we were actually committing to a GitHub repository to trigger Tugboat. So to get the repository, we were actually generating a file that got committed. Now we actually generate it and pass it as part of the HTTP request. Hey, Adam, good morning. So what we should do here is actually, it's like if Drupal 9, if Drupal 8, I guess we do need to do it above hand. So we should, if we do it here, it won't modify it elsewhere. That's the main thing I want to make sure. So we'll say if parameters project type equal to project types core, we want parameters project to equal core. So let's rerun our failed test and see if that works. I want to try to keep the changes scoped within it. within where things belong, because eventually we'll refactor these, and I don't want to modify the global state too much. Okay, so that fixed that. We're calling composer Drupal /core. Now, is that necessary? Possibly not. We'll have it right here, but I rather that adds more logic. This is a quicker fix. This is like a quick surgical incision, just done. Whereas any other work would require a lot of bigger changes. Now, one thing that I didn't consider, so we'll start there. I have another test case that we need to go through, and that is patches. We might have to rate this for patches, and then maybe it does make sense to do a bigger refactoring. Which in that case, we should do it. So parameters. So we should do it here, actually. I'm going to move this out. And we should do this in the instance manager right here. So let's check. So let's paste this, and we'll modify a few things. So it's submission, project, and then type. So if submission project type is core, change the project where is it set here? Oh, project short name. So change project short name to core, and have the submission Drupal version equal parameters project. Oh, sorry, this is project version. We already spun it out. I don't know why we spun it out, but we did. Why is this throwing a... Oh, because it's submission. All right, so let's rerun our test, right? I ran it, and we had somewhat of a fix, but I changed it. So let's rerun it to see if we still have the same fix that's going on. And we don't. Okay. The fix got lost somehow. So project short name. It's equal to project's core. Well, what we can do is, I don't like playing guessing games, is we can debug it and use xdebug. Now, since it's a unit test, all right, that's not what I expected. I expected it to just work. So I was going to say, since it's a unit test, we're able to use xdebug without any extra tricks. But that doesn't seem to be the case today. So that's unfortunate. All right. So if project type, use some of my favorite debugging methods of var dump and throw in exceptions. So what I usually do is I'll throw a runtime exception with var dump, and wait, why is this? Oh, not var dump, var export. Sorry. So var export allows you to pass return true, so it returned a string. So instead of just printing to the console, it will return it as text that's passed to your runtime exception. So if I hit play, this isn't even being hit because we're not calling this in our test. Because in our test, we're actually just calling the preview configurator. So yeah, we can't do it up here. But that does make me think we should put it up here and generate before all these other commands are called and the final tugboat configuration is built. So let me copy that, paste this here. So parameters. So that's the one like hard part is in the instance manager. So I rewrote the launch, but I didn't rewrite a lot of this internal items. And this launch instance is basically doing the mapping from the new launch payload to the old way that it read things. So we're starting to get some of that patterns to, not bite us, but bite us. And I really don't want to just refactor everything right now. So project type there. We rename the project to be there. One second. I just want to check one more thing real quick to make sure. Yep. We're passing it to there. So then we want project version to be or we want the Drupal core version to be project version. So now if I run the test, we should be back to having, all right, great. So we fixed the composer require part where now it's requiring the same version. Remember this was failing, but now we're back at this part where it's trying to do a drush enable, get install commands. So if not is core. Oh, here we go. So I should fix this. So project type is equal to project type's core. You know what? I did the string to lower stuff beforehand. So let's just update is profile to be the same thing. So before it was working because it checked if the project name was Drupal. That obviously doesn't work. So let's run our failing test again, and we're green. Woohoo. All right. So let's go make an issue for quick, and we'll get that up on Drupal.org. Now, the one thing to remember is that on Drupal.org, we do not run Drupal CI. So we actually have we're not able to run these right now. Oh, shoot. And I'm on a stale branch. One second. Let me go to 8.4.x. Roll back my changes. Rebase the current branch on top. Okay, great. So one thing I do like about PHP Storm is when I do Command T, which is also git update project. If you have a dirty branch, it stashes those for you, pulls it down, and then reapplies them. Unlike, I know VS Code, like even changes if you have a dirty branch, which can be a good thing in its own right, because it's like, oh, do you actually want these changes to not be committed? But I really like the fact that I can just do Command T, realize I'm behind, update, and have all my changes persist instead of having to manually manage that. So all right, so I'm going to add the issue fork, and I'm going to copy the branch. And let's commit this, and we'll make this be the first step. So again, I like to always review my commits. So Command D is the same as right click show diff. So we fixed a bunch of the failing tests because I had a typo a long time ago. For the record, the code that generated this had the typo, and I just forgot to fix the test. I didn't like just typo in the test alone. So the test passed because the typo was true. So we have perform install true demo umami. This deserves a comment. This is another thing I do like about PHP. When you're in the diff and you want to like edit a file that you're viewing, you can. Note, this is different on purpose to verify it matches project. There. All right, so make that note, but somebody's going to look at it and be like, why is it not the same? So project types, core, project version, Drupal, patches, the additionals is empty, and we're verifying that it does composer require for that version. We're calling these two items, these could be combined. That's what it's doing, no update, so that way we just update composer.json and then update it all at once. So this should still pass. And there we go. All right, so that looks good. In the instance manager, we've got an unused type, so let's close that out. To do if testing Drupal core, we fixed that later on. So now we're all inside of here. And this is the fix. Let's make a note. We'll make a note here. Rename Drupal to core so that it becomes Drupal core at package name. Have Drupal have core version match the selected project version, as the user may not have opened advanced options. There we go. Comments save sanity. So fix Drupal 9 core, fix launching Drupal 9 core. So we'll commit. And we'll push shift command. That's yeah. So let's push that to our feature branch, and we'll pop open the merge request now. All right, cool. So we've got that going. As I said, we closed everything out when I did that. Let me get back to not projects, tugboat tests. Let's see if I have tugboat unit tests. Great, I already had that in there. Let's rerun all the tests and see what happens. Everything passed. Now, one thing that I'm concerned about is generating patches against Drupal core, and that is a really big use case. So let's see if there should be a test that tests patches. It does. There we go. If I would have slowed down, I would have noticed that. So how about we test it? Patches, we'll add the patches here. So let's run this test again. My concern is that patches won't come through correctly. And so the test failed, which is expected because, right, we modified the data based on what we were expecting. So in patches, file patches.json. All right, so it looks like it came through correctly. We'll make sure to update it. My concern was making sure that it still had Drupal/core, which it does. So stage patching. It has this line. And that composer patch enable or composer patch file and add, actually, I'm guessing these must be commands provided by the composer patches, either CLI or there's in this upper step, it does this composer patches CLI. I'm guessing that's what's adding those commands. It's not actually from composer patches. So let's rerun it because I think these are the two things that were added. It's hard to tell since we're in a full array. Let's run. So it enables the patches.json file. And I'm guessing patch add creates that entry in the patches.json file. Well, this is near impossible to. Let's look at the side by side and maybe that helps determine. Oh, do we have another composer? No, update. Okay, that's why. Or sorry, composer. No, that's there. I'm really confused. 1 second. That's the same. But we do have that after patch add. Okay. Expected. I'm so confused because we have that there, don't we? I'm just going to rerun it with that change and see what comes back. I'm so confused right now because we have two updates. It actually runs the update twice is how I'm reading that, but it doesn't look like it here. Oh, shoot. You know what? All right. So if you didn't catch that, I had a period here instead of a comma. So it was concatenating instead of creating a new entry. So now we should pass. There we go. All right. So we're verifying that patches apply. Now, again, all this is theoretical because I haven't actually run something locally to make sure it actually builds on Tugboat. So that's going to be one of the next steps as well. So let's just update this. Update testing Drupal 9 core with patch. Let's push it. And now let's move to the Drupal 8 config test. I'm going to run it and get my baseline. And I'm actually going to just copy this test case. Oop. If I could shift properly. All right. So where's the end of this? So the main difference here is the major version is 8. We'll do standard and 8.9.2. Or 8.9.12. Again, we're going to change it on purpose. And I think that's the main difference there. So we know some things are just immediately going to fail because they don't match. So let's update that. That on Drupal 9 we don't have that PHP unit prophecy helper library, and we're testing on standard. So let's run the test and see where we get. Second. Oh wait, we got a failure. All right. So first off, I get for Drupal 8, we're testing on Apache 2. So I'm just, since it's so quick to rerun the tests, I'm actually just going to always rerun them whenever I modify something. And there's a neat little item here, toggle auto test. So whenever you modify the test file, it will run, or whenever you modify any files. So let's copy. So it has a different setup process. So this setup, because it does a git clone of Drupal core instead of installing it via what do you call it? Composer, that's the word. So does it require? So let's just paste that there. So when I saved, then see it like reran my PHP unit for me. All right. So this has a different. So it does cd ctm, cd doc root. So when I'm doing that, I'm holding on the option key, and it lets me do the multi-cursor. So that way I can just replace some of those. Now, it probably would have been better if I just copied one of these and modified it, but it is also causing me to read it and see some of the differences along the way. Like, apparently that's not a change. Let's see, I am just going to copy this. It's going to save a lot of grief. So let's copy. Let's paste, and then update the Drupal versions, 8.9.2, composer require. So this should say core and 8.9.12. Hit save, ran, and we got the patches file. Oh, and it didn't install the site? Well, that we'll look into in a minute. Stage patching. We have these two lines. Well, that's interesting. Oh, wait. I don't have it in here to install the site, because I copied the perform install as false. That's why. Okay, I don't feel as concerned then. So installing, and we have standard. So if I hit save, now it's going to replay. Hopefully we're green. All right. So now we've verified that. Actually read these steps because they are build steps that are past the tugboat, like if you're doing a CI project. So it's updating Drupal core and checking out the version because it has the Git repo, patches CLI, patches the optimizations, running composer install. it's then requiring Drupal core, doing patching. Sorry, I was making sure that we eventually ran composer update. It looks like we always run composer update after patching. Composer require no update, patching, the patch enable, update should install the patches. These echoes here are actually used to check like how far we are, because the page reads the logs and tries to find these steps. Standard. All right, so it looks like that really is set. So we'll say verify. I cannot type, so we'll say verify Drupal 8 via testing. So commit and push. Now for Drupal 7, I think that this should be just A-OK. But we'll find out. I'm going to copy this first test. First, let's run it and get our baseline. And as expected, everything worked. Test Drupal core. So project is Drupal. There's and project version, we're going to do, right, we'll just say 7.0. Project types, core, that Drupal version, 7.7, project type, project version, project Drupal. Okay. Oh, patches. Again, patches. Just to make sure. I feel like this might break Drupal 7 since it's tested differently. We'll find out though. So there should be no download. And patching, let's see here, if I can copy and paste the patching. All right, so it's just that one line. This is the new one. All right, let's run it again. And we got a failure. Let's see what the failure is. Oh. Oh, wait. I had these backwards. I want to verify 7.0 is in the core version. So it worked as expected, but that's not how I want to test. Where do I have that note? Let's do that. Let's rerun it. So that's what we need to fix. Expected. So, okay. We have two areas that need to be fixed. One is it's trying to download core inside of itself. And the other part is it's CDing into sites all Drupal cores/core. And trying to download the patch. So we got some work to do in the Drupal 7 department. So let's go to the preview config generator. And that again was when it came to the download stage. So I'm going to get back up to this top area. So get download commands. So if parameters is 9, 8, 7. Okay. So if it's a distro, so we need to do, look, check if core. So it is core equals see. Well, look at there. Looks like I've got somewhere else this needs to be fixed. What is this? In patching commands? I'm not going to touch that actually because I don't know the consequences of it. But what I will do is put this here. Say if is distro or is core. Actually, that's not true. Oh yeah, yep. Sorry, in the download. Yeah, when downloading, we don't want to download when it's core. I'm really curious here. What is core using? Oh, well, you've got to be kidding me. I actually have I had a patching workaround here. You know what? Well, we know this is actually broken because the project name isn't core anymore. So we're going to remove that. And I'm going to just rerun all of the tests. Now, I did a move here. I made 2 changes without running my tests, so I don't know which one would break something. So wait, what's that? The Drupal, okay, so Drupal 7 failed. We didn't break anything here. So let's look at the difference for Drupal 7. Expected. Oh. Yeah. All right, so let's do test Drupal core. All right, so what's the remaining failure? Only remaining failure, so there's no download still because we're in core. The remaining failure is inside of patching. So let's go to our preview configurator, patching commands. So if 7, 8, if 8 or 9, if 7. So get legacy patch command based on the project type in there. So let's fix it in here if project type is Drupal. Well, that's not what the project type is. So let's remove this string to lower. So we can do a comparison inside of the command. So if project type is equal to project types core, else we'll do, actually, I don't even like this the right way. We'll say directory equals that, and if project type is equal to project types distro, we'll say sites all, well, actually this is broken. So one thing that I do like to do is throw an exception. I don't know if we should do an exception here. So we'll return whatever, we'll just fix it. I don't like to do extra fixes and things, but we're not trying to go for perfection here. We're trying to just get Simplytest Me launched and off the ground. So doc root. So we're going to fix patching for profiles right here. So we'll do curl. So we're going to do cd doc root. Where are profiles on legacy sites? Is it just profile? I actually have no idea. I know how we can find out. Let's go to the Drupal codebase. 7.x. Yep. So it's profiles, and it should be right there. Depends if they are contrib or not. Well, how does... You know what? We're going to put to do. decide if this is, well, it's Drupal 7. So where does Simplytest me install the Drupal 7 code base? I know how we can find out too. Let's look at Panoply. It's profiles. This is not a built profile. That's where we can go to Pantheon Systems and look at upstreams, drops 7. Here we go. There's supposed to be drop 7 profiles Pantheon. Okay, great. So I'm assuming that we install it the same way. So we'll do profiles. Is this right? How I have 2 S's? Oh yeah, because it's pluralizing it. So do profiles S, which is then the project name, and then ampersand curl %s patch p1. So I think we will now have support for patching distributions in Drupal 7, not what do you want to call them? Drupal 8 or Drupal 9 yet. Maybe that just works because it's Composer. Patch. So we don't know if this will actually work or not because we don't have distribution support figured out, but it's at least there. And now we'll do string to lower the project types, because if you look, see it says module theme, but actually I want to be more explicit. Directory equals blank. So if project type is equal to project types module, directory equals modules, else if project type is equal to project types theme, type something, end up in the file, directory equals themes, else instead of throwing an exception for now, do exception or log. We'll just print something to the build log for that. So if we cannot determine the directory, we kind of just silently bail. And since I made a whole bunch of changes there, I'm just going to rerun Tugboat. It's config. All right, we got a few failures. Test 1. So see here where I was adding that S in the string replacement? That caused a failure. So let's rerun our tests. And I believe we expect this one to fail, because it's our test and it's failing. It's working. So I believe it's just CDing into the doc root. And let's rerun the failed test. And we're green. All right. So technically, we should have testing Drupal core fixed. Fixed Drupal 7. Testing. Let's again though just review my diff. So yep, fix the download command and legacy patching. I will just do 7 testing, patching, downloading. All right. So commit and push, commit and push. I know I have to-dos and I know I have some warnings. All right. So what's this? What happened? Oh, Composer 2 is available. So we now have it where we could test one of these. The next thing though is, well, we have this wonderful issue where it kind of shows things in reverse. And that has its own task somewhere in here. Project version should be sorted from oldest to newest. Maybe we can quick fix that. So did I start my local environment? Let's see. ddev describe, not describer. Describe. Yes, I did. All right. So we'll go to simplytest me.ddev. And there we go. Drupal core. So let's see. We want to test this now. And maybe I'll end up fixing this in here because testing core feels really awkward if you get the old version first. So let's just see real quick. Projects, controller, get compatible version, get project versions, get all releases. So here's what we do: all releases, and we do not sort. So I'm going to copy that port name. I'm going to open my database here and fix it to be the new Docker port. Wait for that to refresh. So get all releases from the Simplytest project versions table. And date, so we can add let's add a sort by date. So query order by, we'll say created, right? That was the name of it. No, date descending, because most people want to test the most recent version. So let's refresh. And here we go. Now, I guess the one bummer is that the dev versions pop up first then. They're technically last created and updated, and the sorting here is kind of rough. So I don't know. I'm not going to fix this right now because that has other consequences. But what I will do is I'm going to take the screenshot, and we may not want to sort by the date it was released, as dev releases would always bubble up to the top. I'm going to upload that. Click embed so it goes into there. And again, that embed button is coming from the Dredditor browser extension, which I think is unmaintained, and you have to really dig to find it. All right, so pass on that because it's not blocking us here. So I'm going to refresh, pick Drupal core. One thing that would be neat is if we just had like top projects and you just clicked a button and it pre-filled that. So it's like, are you just here to test Drupal core? Click this button. And it pre-filled that. So the next step we need to do is synchronize these. So if it's Drupal core and I pick 7.0 alpha 5, this should update to be 7.0 alpha 5. We have the fix in the background, but it'd be good to just have it or just hide it. Because we override it anyways. The only thing, we can't have it blank because if we look at our typed data definition, core is set to be a required value. So we cannot have it be blank. And that's something we could figure out later on. So if this were to be blank, it would actually throw back an error and say, sorry, you have an invalid launch payload. Yep, front end task is happening right now. We're about to get in the middle of it. And so we're going to go to themes, Simplytest, and I'm going to open my package JSON and watch the files. And this is using Laravel Mix. So that way we'll get some live reloading of our files. Oh, wait a second. What? No executable. 1 second. I have node. Node 16. All right. Package man. Well, you know what? What? Well, I don't need to run it in there because apparently I updated node and then everything went silly inside of PHP Storm. So profile Simplytest. Oh, contrib Simplytest. The themes. Oh, so many folders. So let's do npm run watch. All right, wait for that to build. And I really want to get fancy with it here too. So we have Cypress used for end-to-end testing. I think, right? I added this. Oh yeah, that's right. It's a layer below. So maybe we won't use Cypress for this testing. Let's see. I want to open this in Brave. So Laravel Mix, for those who don't know, is something by the Laravel community, if you can tell by the name, that wraps around Webpack and makes it so easy to do. Like, right, I just do mix, disable notifications, .react. Hey, inside of lib, app.js, I need you to compile my React code. Post CSS. Hey, I've got a Tailwind file. Do things with it. And here, like, it runs the Tailwind configuration. This is on Laravel Mix 5, so it does look a little bit different on 6. I'll be doing a live, I'm actually going to do like an offline video recording of the new Drupal theme generator and creating a Tailwind theme. I wrote a blog about it, but I was actually going to record a video on setting this all up. And then I configure the browser sync. So that's what, if you saw, there was that like little, let's refresh. There's a little notification pops up that says browser sync connected. It's going to take forever to reload. Oh, come on. Well, the browser sync proxies to our DDev site. So that's how localhost 3000 is showing our Drupal site. And it watches any of these files for changes. And if any of these files change, it's going to refresh the page for us. And since we're using watch, it is going to compile those as well. So I don't know why this got all kinds of silly when I just try to refresh the page. There we go. So yeah, that browser sync connected. All right, let's figure out what we want to do here. So inside of our app, we actually have a context. So this is using React hooks. And a context is, think of it like just global state management. You would have done this with Redux with your state stores. We're using a single launcher context that's passed to everything in the form. Like if I go to our launcher here. So we have a launcher provider, which wraps the launcher element, and that's this entire form right here. If I were to open DevTools and get the React components, so see here's the launcher provider. Here's all the hooks that it provides, and the state. So it has all the state values. When I type in Drupal core, you'll see that now my state reordered, and we have the project name here. We have the version. So if I change this to 7.3, the state's committed, and we see that it's updated here. And this context provider has all of the values, and that's being sent down to children components inside of here. So that's how modifying this version, which is here, is able to modify our context, and we can become aware of it in the core version. Even one here. So let's go to 9.1.6. So we'll see everything updated. Oh, each child has a list. So that's how we now have the umami demo, because the system knows that Drupal 7 does not have the umami demo. So we're leveraging this this launcher context to pass state across our entire app and component. And the various hooks that we use are use context, that's for here, create context. Then we have use state, which tracks all of the state inside of the context. And we actually pass down some of these setters into the child components as well. Then we have use effect, that whenever the selected project is changed, the project, that's a distribution, we update the set install profile. Which once we actually get distributions fixed, I feel like that's going to break here, because it won't be something listed unless we hide it. All right, so what we need to do is say when it's Drupal core and we have this version, we want to synchronize this right here. What I would love to do is get Jest installed and actually do testing of our React components, but that's going to take a long time, and I try to keep these to be 2 hours long, and we have 45 minutes left. So what I want to introduce is a new hook. So right here, we have this Drupal version and set Drupal version. What I want to do is, let's go to not refresh, but React.js use reducer. I want to go to the actual hook references. So there's various hooks. The base hooks, when you're writing React, I just gave a decoupled Drupal workshop last month. And if you ever needed to use Redux before, you don't. You just need use state and use effect. And that's basically it. You can get a really robust, dynamic React app with state management using use state and use effect, plain and simple. But when you do have something that's more complex, like a form, that's when it's useful to have use context. So you create a context that wraps around all of your components and their children to bubble state up and down. But then if you have things that maybe are a little bit more complex, that's when you have these additional hooks. Use reducer, use callback, use memo, use ref. I don't really want to go through all of them, but we're like use ref lets you pass like a reference to an actual DOM element. Use memo memoizes a function. Now, for those who don't know, memoization is the fancy word of saying static cache. I think everybody in Drupal land knows what static cache is. We use it all the time. That's technically called memoization. And I've never heard the proper software engineering term used except for in front-end development, specifically JavaScript, which I think is comical because I didn't hear it in like whenever working with Java, or at least not to my knowledge. But we're going to focus on use reducer. If you worked with Redux, you're familiar with reducers because they were a required part of state management. You would dispatch an action, and then reducers would, I considered it subscribing to an action, and they would manipulate the data stored into state. With React hooks, you don't need reducers. You just say on effect, do something, or you just set the state. So what we're going to do is create a reducer that checks on, well, my plan is to use a reducer that listens to the selected project and selected version. But what we could do is we actually have this set main project that's shown, and this is through some refactoring. So maybe we don't actually need a reducer. So this set main project came about through the evolution of this code. The code has kind of just been built on and built on without really being refactored at all. So let's just look for uses of set main project. So inside app, set main project, project selection. So actually inside our project selection component, which is, let me get back our component tree, project selection, set main project. So whenever this changes here, it's invoking this set main project. So we actually don't need a reducer yet. In the future, when this gets cleaned up, possibly. Because what we could do is, so set main project. So you can do this. So if, we'll say if project dot, I don't want it to recompile by tabbing over, but if project dot short name is equal to Drupal, we don't need it to do there. We want to set the Drupal version to version as well. Now I'm going to make it to do in the future. Maybe we need to have a reducer that can set all of this, because right, like when we refactor the fact the selected the main project version and project data are two state values. Because in the end, I would like to actually combine these two things into one state value, because they get set at the same time, like they're chosen. Although I guess not technically, because you pick a project and then you see the version selector. So there's a lot of architectural change to happen in this React app that I just haven't had time to sit down and make. But luckily, one of the nice things about React is, JavaScript, React with JavaScript, whatever you want to say, is that you can just get stuff done. It's just like PHP code. There is no like formal structure. It's just write code, get it done. Else. You don't have to say that you have this specific structure like when in Angular. I mean, I'm sure with Angular and Vue, you can do the same thing where there's ways just to get it done. But with Angular, you have a much more specific app structure with dependency injection. And then Vue, in my opinion, is the love child of Angular and React, but with more web components. So that's one reason I do like React, is I can just get in, write JavaScript, and be done without following any specific paradigms, just like PHP code. But again, that can always be for better or worse, as we all know. All right, so I've picked this. Now let's see here. If I pick 9.1.0, it picked .9.9. And I bet that is because it's checking core compatibility. All right, so whenever you choose something here, we fetch the compatible versions. So we don't need to do that if we're with Drupal core, right? If we're with Drupal core, we know the versions are compatible. So let's figure out where that next line of code is. So we are at least synchronizing the values somewhat. I hope. So let's figure out where that's happening. And everything's in this app.js. Eventually it needs to get spun out into its own files, but that's so if somebody wants to help out with a really easy house cleaning keeping task is moving these components into their own files so that way it's maybe easier to find them. So Drupal core version selector, use effect, selected project, selected version. So we want to change this. That is Drupal core equals selected project dot. Right, that's the same thing I did here. Yep, so if project short name is Drupal, we want to we don't want this. So we want to get, let me find that method, projects, routing, sorry, not method, but the routing. So it's really neat. We actually do have a route that says given a project and the core version or the version, like find the compatible core versions. So if you have token slash 7.x, you won't get Drupal 8 core versions available. But in here, what we'll just fetch is this major version. And where do we call it? I guess we don't actually call this route anymore. Good thing I didn't delete it. I guess we don't really call this route anymore since we find compatible versions. But duplicated, but that's okay. Core versions. And we want, let's pick selected let's try that. We want the first letter from the selected version. And hopefully that is what does it. We're going to keep the network tab open so we can see what comes out of here. Let's clear it. Let's pick Drupal core. See all the autocomplete happening. All right, so we've got core 7 version 7. And that gave us all this. So we're at 7.0. Let's pick 7.80. Now I think we could do a performance improvement here, but I want to just first make sure this works. So one thing that's happening is we have a side effect that runs whenever the selected project changes or the selected version changes, which we need to do when, like, let's say, like I said, you have the token module and you change the version of the token module. We need to find what are the available Drupal core versions. So I guess, yeah, we do have to run this every time. There might be a way we can make this more performant so that way we're not constantly fetching the Drupal core versions. But at the same time, it took 64 milliseconds, and that's locally. Well, I guess it's on the local machine. So Drupal's obviously like really fast here, and everything would be cached. So it's not the end of the world. We'll worry about that kind of performance optimization down the road. So I want to pick 9.0.10, and we're able to get 9.0.10. I do 9.4. Awesome. So we get all of those updates nice and quick. What I would like to do is let's simplify this a bit. And it's the way that it's processed is the same. So we're going to say let release URL, and we'll have, let's cut that. We'll have release URL equals this. Let's cut that and release URL. So if else, then fetch the release URL. Sorry, my face is itchy. Allergies are nuts, and like it was like 45 degrees Fahrenheit 2 days ago, and then it was 89 degrees or 85 degrees Fahrenheit yesterday. It's 74 degrees now, and then in like 2 days it's going to be 50 degrees. Like we're having like huge like temperature swings and like rain, and it's just like annihilating my sinuses and allergies and everything. All right, so let this refresh. So the change I made was just reducing the boilerplate, like if is Drupal core, and honestly here, we'll leave that because I have another idea on what we can do. So Drupal core, and as I said, I don't like that we have to keep fetching, like, you know what, somebody's like, oh, 9. Oh, I meant to actually click 9.1.6. I don't think we should be fetching releases every single time. Even if the browser cache would have it set, it's still like it's more CPU wasted on their end. So what we could do is, so if Drupal core so we could say like if is Drupal core and selected version. So if selected version 0 is equal to Drupal version 0, yeah, if the major version is the same, let's just return early. So let's try this out. So the idea is that prevent extra requests for Drupal version. All right, for tuning in, and go enjoy a beer. I know, I mean, it's gonna be noon here, and I could find yard work, which is an excuse for beer time in the States, or at least Wisconsin. But I have to first go buy some stuff for our yard before I do that said yard work. So prevent extra requests for Drupal version if we're on the same major. So the idea is that we'll save this extra request. Let's wait for this to reload and verify. So if I do Drupal core, oh, but it didn't even fetch the first versions. Or it just didn't. So if is Drupal core and selected version dot length. Let's try this, greater than 0. This is where having component testing would be really nice, because it would be, we could test this without having to like change it and wait for the front end to reload. So there's a logic gotcha somewhere in there. All right, we're going to just remove this, and we'll say at to do, and let's make sure it still works. We can do the performance optimization would be nice, but it's causing more pain than good. Yeah, so we'll find a way to like fix that. We'll cut that down in size. All right, so well, let's fix this. This should be HTML4. That's the correct way to do it. All right, so I think that's it. Now, let's see what happens. Let's try it out. Actually, I want to keep DevTools open so I can review the network tab. Console, class, invalid DOM name of class name, div advanced options. Let's just get that quick fix in. And let's try launching. So what happened before? Actually, let's go all out. Like if we're going to do this, if we are going to do this, let's do it the right way. By stopping the watch. Let's do build. So I'm going to let that build. We're going to kill this. Let's find a patch. Let's go to issues. Let's see. That seems Oliveira. I was hoping we could find like something quick. Let's look for the umami demo. Remove the warning about the umami demo on the install screen. What is this? This sounds great. Let's do that. So we're going to copy the URL, the patch link. This built, right? Everything built, the post CSS, all that. So the truth, we got Drupal core. This is against 9.3.x. .3.x. It's not coming up. There we go, way down there. Didn't, oh, well, at least it's something there. It's probably, my releases are probably stale. I'm not sure. Well, we should actually just hide that. Hold on, before I get too far in. We should hide that. Because there's no reason for it to show. So, let's see, we want the side effect to still run. So if selected project is equal to selected project version, selected project dot short name equal to Drupal, we'll return null. So if the apparently I don't know what I'm doing here. Oh, jeez. All right, so if we're dealing with the Drupal project, if we're dealing with Drupal core, we don't want anything to display for the core version selector. We'll see what that does for the user interface. Do I still have my patch copied? Yes, I do. All right, wait for this to build. So let's pick Drupal core. Yes. All right. We want to pick 9.3.x. So the Drupal core selector is missing, which is what we want to see. Everything's been minified because we're in a production build, but we can still see the context provider and the values. And we see that the Drupal version is set. So we're going to add that patch, and we'll see that it's in our patches list. This requires a manual installation. So we're going to click manual. And verify that's in our there. I wonder if we should hide the install profile if it's a manual installation, because that feels kind of silly to have there. But that's for another day. So now I'm going to click launch sandbox. What? Patches must only originate from a Drupal.org domain, but it is. Errors. Well then, that's unexpected. Let's go look at that here. So as I brought up about our type data before, inside of the instance launch definition, inside of project info, patches, we have a custom constraint called patches URL. And patches URL constraint validator. Allowed hosts. What are the allowed hosts? Allowed hosts. Parameter. Allowed hosts. Oh, what did we do here? Oh, because I don't have it configured. So this is something we added earlier on. Config, sync, Simplytest, launch settings. So let's create Simplytest launch.settings.yaml. And we have its allowed hosts. Why didn't we hardcode part of this? I don't remember. This was added a while ago. If an array, so this should be Drupal.org. Oh man, I could remember when we did this. This was like months ago. Test default local. I thought I had it in here. I did not. Do I have a test for it? Yes, I do. Kernel test space, install config, install. Oh, all right. So I'm going to actually add it to our config sync. So now when we deploy it, it will get imported, because Simplytest is the Simplytest project leverages Core's config install setting for profiles. So that will fix a bug in production. And to quick work around this, in my settings.local.php, do config, man, now my brain is blanking out on settings, and then it is allowed hosts. So I'm just making a config override for myself, so that way I can work around the problem. So maybe we'll be fixing a few bugs today instead of just core version support, which is nice. All right. So if I run launch sandbox, I need to do a ddev drush cr. The reason I need to do a cache rebuild is we actually convert the config object into a service parameter. So that way we don't have to load config. It's already been cached in the container, which makes it more performant in the long run. All right, well, I'm just going to refresh the page. I could just press the button again and the cache will be rebuilt, but we're going to do Drupal core. We're going to pick 9.3.x. Again, we'll verify that the context provider has our version of Drupal core. Select a project. We have our patch. Let's launch the sandbox. You've got to be kidding me. Ddev xdebug. Why is this broken now? So we're going to, we got xdebug listening. We're going to click launch sandbox. All right, so value is there. So let's step through. Why is this host? www.drupal.org. This allowed host is empty. Why is it still empty? Ddev xdebug off. Ddev drush. What is it? Drush config edit. I'm going to just copy this. Failed to edit because it doesn't exist. All right. Well, you're going to make me do this. Do we have a route for editing this? Yes, no, we don't. Copy. And do it the, oh, that's right. That needs to get, that has a fix. I need to run a config import to fix that. Let's click import, single item, simple configuration. The config name is Simplytest launch settings. Actually, I'm going to turn xdebug back on, and we're going to verify that this didn't get all kinds of weirdly broken. And the allowed host settings is here. Save. Oop. So config, no, we don't want to validate all that, or here. Yes, I want to create that. Okay, so it's rebuilding the container for us. Settings, the allowed hosts. All right, it's working now. I don't know what happened there. But it's there. So now, if I click on launch sandbox, it's going to validate. Host is there. This allowed hosts. All right. We're off to the races. I mean, I guess if we want, look at base preview ID. This is going to create the request. Let's just hit play. And now we're on the progress page and is building our instance. And we're talking to the tugboat, and it's giving us our log. And this is how we know what the progress is. So here we go, cloning the project. Which, Adam, we need to clean up all the old branches on the GitHub because it makes this take longer to build. Oh. All right, let's see here. So we did 9.3.x. Found PHP unit. But the package is locked to 8. Oh. Core dev. When did this become? Wait. Why isn't this needed here? Because I have to do this everywhere else. On every other thing I do in my automated tests. Maybe it's something with just the core dev. Hmm. Um. Well, that's interesting. The package is fixed 8.5. All right. Well, maybe we don't actually. You know what? We only really need that when doing static analysis or running PHP unit tests, and we're not doing any of those on Simplytest Me. So let's go and tugboat tests Drupal 9. Let's find all instances of this. We're going to do removing or reiteration only needed for PHP testing. So instead of wholesale removing it, I'm just going to comment it out. So we can decide later if to add it or not. Like if we have errors and it requires adding it. I wish when you did command slash for this, it would like put it at the beginning of the line like it does on every other language. So, okay, so we needed it for update status. That's right. Yeah. Yep. Shoot, people are doing static analysis. If you're running upgrade status, which runs PHP stand, you need this. But why is it breaking on 3.x dev? That's what I don't understand. Because you need to have that. You need to have that in order to test to run it on PHP unit. Like I'm so confused right now. Like in Drupal check even, if I go to GitHub and I go to workflows and I do PHP spec, so in here, like if Drupal 9, like you have to require it. So something's weird with our setup. So before I go to rabbit hole, before I get too down there, let's just focus here real quick. Fix missing launch settings for Drupal.org allowed hosts. I'm going to stop getting ahead of myself real quick. And we're going to hide Drupal core version. Maybe it is due to the base preview. I got an idea though. I know what we can do. So hide Drupal core version when testing Drupal core. When launching Drupal core. All right, I got an idea. Let's just push these fixes first. Because we're really close. Now, I'm going to end up breaking all of my tests, I think. So one thing we should do here. Maybe that's why. So we require it, but we don't do no update. So I'm going to copy this. Rather, we'll do dev, and we're going to do no update. Replace all. That's only a Drupal 9 thing because it's part of the problem with PHP Unit 9. So like if you have PHP Unit 8, you're good to go. If you have PHP Unit 9, that's when it explodes. So PHP spec. So everything in here uses no update. So we don't do updates until later on. So let's try this again though. I have to run my tugboat unit test to make sure I got it all straight up and correct. All right, we're good to go there. So this failed. One thing we need to do is there's no way to go back after a build error. So let's go to this site here. We're going to try this again. Drupal core. And do 9.3.x. Patches. Probably maybe we should turn off autocomplete there, but right now that is really handy. Value, we have our patches. I'm going to do a trick where I'm going to preserve my log. No, that wouldn't work either. All right, so we're going to do manual installation. And let's launch the sandbox. And it's going to bring us to the status indicator. So while we wait for that to run, one thing I want to show is, so my wife recently became a home baker and is making a bunch of cookies. And I bought a 3D printer so I can make cookie cutters for her to save on cost, because we were spending a lot of money on cookie cutters. All right, so we're getting further now. So I took the Drupal logo and made a cookie cutter out of it, and we're going to start doing some samples. And she can't sell out of state due to the fact that she's not in a commercial kitchen. But one thing that I do want to do is make some cookies and send them out to some Drupal friends. So like Adam, I know you've been wanting some cookies for a while. I will be sending you some once we work out the tests with this. And then I'll be pinging a few people and be like, hey, can I send you some cookies? So lately, I've been posting a bunch of stuff with a 3D printer. That's why I bought one, so that way we could make things for my wife. All right, so this is installing stuff, loading from the cache. Like, I wish we could run automated tests on this, but it just takes so long. So patching, could not find a composer.json in web because we don't want to CD into the doc root. Man, the good news is we got past, like, it installed this part, so that's good. Now we need to fix patching in Drupal 9. All right, so we're in here. I just want to see this go to fruition before I sign off. And preview config generator, patching commands. So if 8 or 9, we don't want to CD into the doc root. We want to so CD, we want CD CTM. We want to do that. because the doc root is web, and previous version had cd doc root. That's why it did. So let's do cdstm. That's in various areas. Okay, and that's even in here. Which will break. Let's run the tests because we were going to break a bunch of things. Yep. Oh, all the things. So let's edit. Nope. Jump to source. That's not the source I want. So it's just stm. We'll replace all. And in the Drupal 9, we'll replace all. Let's rerun the test. So now we gotta fix this. STM. And while I'm here, it's going to be right here. Let's fix it there. And there. All right, so our test should be updated. And we should be able to launch Drupal 9 with a patch. No, come on. What else is missing? What? Expected actual. Oh. Because we got to actually fix the command. All right, so let's do that. All right, so now we've got that right. Let's go back to the home page. Let's do Drupal core 9.3.xdev. That patch. We want to test a manual install. Launch the sandbox. And then, yeah, I think we have a ticket about this being full page or full width. Height? Height, that's the word. I want to find a way to get this to like follow too. All right, updating dependencies. It's going. All right. 1 second. What, buddy? Sorry about that. Apparently, my son's sandals are in my office closet. And I have to go hunt for them once I'm off of here. All right. I want this just to work. All right, so it's installing. So that's good. At least we're able to get the and the patching is what failed. So now it's patching. It's reinstalling Drupal core. Part of me feels like maybe we need to run the patching first and then the downloading, and it would be faster, but it would be like out of sorts. So, all right. Applying patches. So the patch is applied. Lock file is good. We're finalized. It's committing, and we're about to be on the site. And we'll see if the patch applied and removed the warning. Why is this that needs work? In fact, we already have multiple tests that exercise each of these options. Okay, not sure if we need the test. All right, so that's why it's at the test there. So once this is finished, it should automatically redirect us once Tugboat's done committing the changes to the test environment. There we go. That's the test URL. I'm going to copy it just in case. So now we're here. So let's choose language. And the warning is removed. So we see the expected results. And that's it. I gotta actually like go through the install. The Drupal installers. Wait, that's new. Up. All right. Well, we've got some things that aren't related to this to figure out. And maybe it's part of the manual install. So I'm going to take a screenshot of that, and we can solve that later on. But for all intents and purposes, we got this to work. We were able to test Drupal core, apply a patch, and be off to the races. Fix patching. So I'm going to do commit and push. I'll push it. Oh, this feels good. I feel like the past few days I've been doing these live streams to contribute to open source, and it's just been like brick wall. It feels like I haven't gotten much done. So this is nice. During the live stream, we were able to get Drupal 9 3.x with patching. I think this is good to go after a review. So I'll remove it from myself. It needs review. I'm going to click save. And there we go. I'm really excited about that. I'm going to quick open let's search manual install. You can no longer choose language or install profile when installing core. That's from 2 years ago. All right. There's other things there. I'm going to new thingy. What's the word? Issue. Warning show when cannot perform a manual install. There's a bug report. 8.4.x. Leave it unassigned. I'm just going to delete the default template, which you can actually now customize for your own projects. So when creating a sandbox with manual install, it could not be completed. It seems like the installer could not copy over default.settings.php to settings.php, but seems okay via brush. Also, it supposedly says there says we do not have clean URLs or op cache. So those are all changes to the base preview. I bet the base previews just need to be cleaned up, which we have a ticket to do that programmatically from the Simplytest site. Upload that. Kaboom. Save. All right. Great. That was good. I think that's one of the major beta blockers. And so we actually fixed two things today: launching core and then patching projects on Drupal core, or patching projects for Drupal 8 and Drupal 9 all together, and patching Drupal 7 core possibly. And we do need to pay attention to Drupal 7 core because there are a lot of people that still use it and are constantly improving it. I mean, I don't think folks realize, but Drupal 7 is PHP 8 compatible. Like, people are running Drupal 7 on PHP 8. So it's still being actively tested and patches reviewed. So that's that. Thanks for tuning in to the simplytest.me Sunday live stream. I do this every Sunday at 10 a.m. Central, which is like 3 p.m. UTC, I believe, if I'm remembering off the top of my head correctly. And I also, on Wednesdays, do a D10 readiness stream. So Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Central, which is late UTC. I work on the Drupal 10 readiness. Lately, I've been working on Drupal Rector. But I'll be picking up some other Drupal 10 readiness stuff. And on Fridays, I'm doing a new one at 3 p.m. Central, kind of like an afternoon thing. I'm calling it the Hack and Play, where I'm going to try experimenting with a few new items. Like the first one I'll be doing this Friday is on the Workspaces module in Drupal core, kind of playing around with that. So thanks for tuning in, and have a good weekend, or end of the weekend. Go enjoy yourself. Bye.